thought. She chilled the wine, too. Then she set off for home, trying not to think about mutant giant daisies. Josh Henderson climbed out of the minicab, juggling 3 jumbo tubs of paint and a large packet of brushes, trying to wave his thanks to the driver, who ignored him and screamed away in a spray of loose stones. The drive was meant to be gravelled, but most of it seemed to have worn away, and the rest was being eroded daily by the sole local cab firm. He winced as a pebble hit the kitchen window. A tiny chip that would invariably grow and grow. He wondered how much it would cost to get the driveway re-gravelled. Probably a small fortune, and he'd have to use some special heritage gravel because of all the stupid regulations in this country. He glanced again at the quote from the roofing company. Not a normal roofing company, but a special heritage one. Josh was beginning to learn that heritage was an expensive word in England. He looked around the kitchen in despair. Kitchen was in and of itself an optimistic word for the room, which comprised a short section of Formica units that were probably older than Josh, a large wooden table that definitely was, and an ancient primeval stove that was probably older than his home country. He cleaned up here as much as he could, sweeping and mopping and bleaching quite heavily. The fridge and microwave were brand new and looked very out of place against the scuffed and faded worktops. He half expected them to trigger an electrical fire, but the wiring at least seemed sound enough. Underneath the cracked and peeling linoleum, he'd found a rather fine tiled floor, and with not much else to do, had scrubbed it until it gleamed. The kitchen could probably be quite nice, if it had some decent fixtures and fittings. The rest of the house, on the other hand... A crash from upstairs made him jump. Shit! Don't say that was another window. They were all original features, complete with wobbly panes and rotting wood frames, and he knew without asking that replacing any of them would be way out of his budget. "Move to England," he muttered. "It'll be like Miss Marple before all the murders. They don't tell you." He passed his hand over a gap in the handrail. "About the damp, and the birds on the roof, and the goddamn heritage gravel." Yesterday he'd smiled at the woman in the village shop as she handed him his change and wished her a nice day. She'd looked at him as if he'd cursed her to the very pits of hell. This village was weird. All of England was weird. He could go back to Seattle. He could probably get another job in corporate law, rent a new apartment, in a new district, where Maya wouldn't find him. Maybe not Seattle. Maybe the East Coast? He trudged up the stairs, which creaked like the dying of 1,000 souls, and poked his head into one of the many spare bedrooms. They had been mostly empty when he moved in, and had gotten even emptier since. The only thing left in the bedroom that faced over the front drive was the large glass ball hanging in a string net in the window. He didn't know what it was for, but the patterns it reflected on the floorboards looked cool, so he left it. "God damn it!" he said, staring at the broken string and smashed glass on the floor. A couple of small brown shapes darted along the skirting boards, because of course the damn place had mice. Of course it did. And now one of them appeared to have chewed through the string, and all that was left of the globe of greenish glass was a mess on the floor. And some... Wait, was that a roll of paper? Josh crunched over to it and crouched down, pushing aside the shards of glass with the sleeve of his plaid shirt before picking it up. It was a sheet of lined paper, the kind torn from a notebook, folded into quarters, and then over at the edges, like a kid trying to pass a secret note at school. He unfolded it carefully, to see spidery writing in faded green ink, and another wad of paper folded inside it, which fell to the floor amongst the glass. "Of course it's green," he muttered. He knew nothing about the extremely distant relative who'd lived here last, apart from her liking for cheap chintzy furniture and disinterest in updating any features of the house that were within 50% of their working parameters. But maybe she'd been an eccentric old lady who'd... Well, maybe she'd hidden a fortune in the cellar, somewhere Josh had not been brave enough to venture. And this was the start of a treasure hunt? He peered at the writing, but could make out only a few words. Stuff and nonsense appeared to be some of them, and at the bottom was a signature that began with an A and then meandered off through what appeared to be the rest of the...